Okay, good afternoon. Thanks again for all of you joining us for today's discipline dialogue. We're having about 20 of them over here this spring. In years past, we would have these discipline dialogues in person, face-to-face at our K-14 Dual Credit Summit, our mini conference that we have annually. This year, the conference has been moved up. And also, instead of targeting dual credit instructors, it was for guidance counselors and principals. But in years past, these discipline dialogues, the breakout sessions with the program chairs and statewide leads were very popular. And so we wanted to try to recreate this in a different format, in a virtual format, so that way people from all across the state could join us, and also just have that kind of back and forth and Q&A with some of our on-campus faculty. So today, joining us, we have Rebecca. Rebecca, I'll yield the floor to you for just a minute. And if you want to introduce yourself, do that, and then we'll jump into the agenda, and I'll just kind of moderate and do the questions with you.
Great, thank you. So I'm Rebecca Bishop, and I work at the Fort Wayne campus of Ivy Tech. My current role is I'm the Dean of Arts and Sciences and Education, so that means all of the gen ed classes, which has pretty high enrollment usually in our dual credit population, fall under me for the people that are teaching dual credit in our 11 county areas. I'm actually on this leadership board talking specifically today about classes in our humanistic and artistic way of knowing portion of our gen ed core. So I'm happy to answer questions about that today. I come to this, originally I came to Ivy Tech as a teacher in the communication program. I've been teaching public speaking and interpersonal and mass media for about 25 years now. So, and as a communication person, I'm also credentialed to teach our HUMA 110 class, which is theater appreciation.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. For anyone joining us today, if you have any questions at any time, this is meant to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to come off mute, ask your question, raise a hand. If you want to raise a virtual hand, there's a button you can click, and you can do that as well. So with all of that being said, Rebecca, we've started off with all these sessions is just kind of a best practice introduction. Is there anything in these programs or disciplines that you think dual credit instructors should be aware of? Maybe there's some sort of hidden resource, some sort of thing that you've seen done in a few dual credit classes that have worked well for one reason or another. Anything like that that you'd like to share with those joining today?
Well, I think in the humanities classes, something that has a unique opportunity that sometimes we don't really embrace much at the college level, but you might have increased opportunity to embrace it at the dual credit level, is to have the students actually attend an event. If they're taking a art appreciation, a music appreciation, a theater appreciation class, actually witnessing that, whether to attend a museum or an art museum, or even to maybe a outdoor portrait kind of experience. Those are wonderful. That really helps to bring our classes to life. Regrettably, the other classes in HUMA, in the humanistic and artistic way of knowing, which is philosophy, we don't have a whole lot of live events attached to that. But if you ever have an opportunity to encourage your students to engage outside of the class or outside of the textbook material or the lecture material, I just really encourage you to do that. That's one of the kind of hallmarks of being exceptional for us in this area.
Not that it's 100% related, but a couple of weeks ago, I was in DC for a work conference, and I had a chance to go to the National Portrait Gallery and the National Art Gallery. And those, I taught history in high school when I was a high school teacher, and government and econ. So I love DC, but I've never really kind of gone to those museums before. I was like, sparing it, Ace and Air and Spades and, things like that. And I had a blast. That was so much fun. And yeah, you always see those pictures everywhere. You see it on your money, and it just really came to life seeing it. So that's my 2-cent endorsement to tell everyone to do that as well.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So with that being said, we have this PD opportunity right here. There's always some sort of professional development in and around all of our subject areas. Is there anything specific either that the college is offering, or that, maybe um, some other stakeholder group or the state's doing, or an accreditation body, anything like that? Any sort of professional development opportunities that dual credit instructors should be aware of?
Well, there's a couple. And the first one I'd start with is if you have an art museum or in your community, or any type of art initiative. Sometimes they're like downtown walks that are attached to art, or maybe visiting a local gallery. Usually, though, the PD sessions are housed in the art museum. Sometimes there'll be like a lecture about a particular artist or a local artist. I just really encourage you to participate in those. Our art history people in Fort Wayne have really expressed a appreciation for that outside of Ivy Tech's PD, but what's really available in our community. I think that's a great opportunity. Another thing that we've really encouraged, that we've had the opportunity to explore in Fort Wayne, is even our local theater productions. What we have, a civic theater and several other local theaters, and also the theaters attached to higher education. Sometimes they will have sort of a question and answer period with their directors and their set designers and their actors, and we also see that as a PD opportunity to sort of engage with, how has your experience in theater evolved over the years, and what advice would you offer someone who's just exploring what theater means to them? And I see those again as a really valuable PD session outside of what we offer here at Ivy Tech. Then in terms of PD at Ivy Tech, I think you should also consider perhaps connecting with your local program chair, who is your onboarding person, who might be able to have some local resources to offer to you. In the humanities areas, we do not have, I was talking earlier about this with Mark, we do not have an open educational resources curated platform for each one of those different disciplines, but we encourage people to sort of share what they've done for themselves or amongst their colleagues in their school systems. Part of the reason we don't have an OER platform in those areas is because it is so content heavy, and a lot of that content, like the images, are copyrighted, or if it's music, some of the recordings are copyrighted. And also it becomes difficult to curate that, to put it all together in terms of the narrative being always from the same person, kind of making sense. Like if you read one person's examination of maybe one theater performance and then a different person's examination, the writing style is very different. And so those critiques are kind of difficult to put together. So OER, though I think it's a great idea, we haven't quite figured out a way to cross that bridge or embrace that at Ivy Tech in these particular areas. So I would guess, to answer your question about PD, it really is attached to publisher content, resources you may have from there, local program chair opportunities in your communities. And I don't think I have something formal attached to every one of these courses outside of that. But I guess I am kind of curious. Humanities, the humanistic and artistic way of knowing portion of the Indiana College Core, is a pretty broad offerings of courses. And I'm curious, what are the courses that we're really talking about here today? Like, what are the courses that you are engaged with?
Hi, my name is Brie Carazia. I teach both theater appreciation and music appreciation. So my background, I have an MFA in acting, and then I transitioned to social studies, and then I transitioned to English. So I teach a lot of different things and different contents. Because I can teach music appreciation, I find that's probably my weaker, just because I'm still trying to build upon it and get students engaged. I think because of my theater background, and it can lead to project-based learning, I can kind of put them in the hands and watch and view, but when they're listening, it's really hard to keep these students engaged. So I would love any ideas on that.
Yeah, that is a whole different experience. I completely agree with you. Now, in our online version of music appreciation, we do require students to attend at least one live musical event. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional event like your local symphony, which is often what they think. It could be music sponsored by a church, or music at that open mic night kind of experience, or music at an outdoor park. And I would really encourage you to try and track down some of those opportunities for your students. I've sent students to high school music events, you know, to go listen to the band, the choir. Um, so, but in terms of resources beyond that, I'm trying to think. I don't think we necessarily have one. Not that I couldn't get my hands on it, but honestly, most of our music appreciation classes are taught online now. This kind of came out of COVID. So in the past, I could say, oh, I have this great music appreciation professor who I think could really join this conversation and offer some insights. But regrettably, we don't have those now. The class is taught online, but I could look through the online class to see if there's additional opportunities for you. Again, though, I guess kind of started this conversation, there was some pushback about how can you expect students to attend a live event, and we have held firm to that. They were like, you can watch it on YouTube. And I would argue, I think you'd probably agree, watching a symphony on YouTube is nothing like, and playing with your phone on the side and petting your dog and eating a snack is nothing like going to see a live event. So I just think we really have to hold firm to that. And I think as we did that in our online classes, the students that have taken the challenge have then come back and expressed, I never would have done this if I had not have been forced. And now I see the difference. Now I see the value. So I do, so on the other hand, see value in having some curated sort of YouTube videos kind of experiences. We don't have a landing page for that, but I'm going to ask about that. That's a great question.
And just for everyone's reference, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Rebecca can do the same. And if anyone wants to connect, afterwards, feel free to email one or both of us, and we can help kind of, corral some of those resources that you might have or questions, either point you at a direction at your local campus, or, maybe pose it to a statewide committee. Every one of our programs has, a committee statewide made up upwards of 19 members. And oftentimes we'll get kind of questions from the field, usually on campus, but we would welcome them from dual credit instructors as well, for things that we could try to incorporate into our courses that would make them that much better for students. So do feel free to reach out to any of us afterwards. With that being said, I am going to put another resource in the chat here. And this is a Google Drive that we're still developing, so it's not 100% finished yet, but we're getting closer to the finish line with it. In years past, we had just a generic statewide template for all dual credit courses. And so that covered everything from, music appreciation all the way to welding and everything in between. It was just a generic template, had a lot of the legal language in it, like Title IX and grading policies and kind of things like that. Something we are developing for this coming academic year, the 24-25 academic year, is a course by course syllabus template that will incorporate the course outline of record and those course objectives into it. So that way, hopefully it makes the syllabi submission process in the fall or next year a little bit more simple. There'll still be things you have to update, put your name on it, school email address, your calendar will probably be the big thing, but it hopefully will eliminate some of the confusion, especially sometimes when we have instructors with multiple syllabi in several courses, trying to keep all those straight and make sure everything's in the right order and easy to get the wrong course objectives in the different class. So hopefully that all helps. Rebecca, I don't know if you have anything. I know that you've helped develop some of these. If you have any tidbits or anything that you'd like to say about it.
Well, there's nothing like a robust syllabus. It's kind of a double-edged sword. You put everything in there. It's, here's the rules, here's the protection in case you go off course, but then also you put everything in there, it becomes so long and cumbersome for a student to read. And so the whole "it's in the syllabus" comment is often because, in my mind, the student hasn't read the syllabus. So my advice is to try and, your students and your audience better than I do, to try and break that syllabus up so that it's easy to search and easy to even print if a student wants to print it, or if you want to print it, and it's easy to tab through. I know that we load a lot of content into our syllabi, and it's not necessarily each time user friendly. So that would just be what I'm encouraging, and be a little creative. What works for you and your students so that they can easily refer to it. That's kind of the advantage of an in-person dual credit class, isn't it? I mean, it's the advantage of an in-person class at Ivy Tech, that you can make the syllabus kind of have a little bit of your own flavor. I always put some image in my syllabus, or I have some way of highlighting, first, second, and third, other than just a 1, 2, and a 3. So I would encourage you to do that, particularly in a humanities class, because I'm sure you're all creative people, have, interesting ways of hallmarking important information, and I think that your syllabus should reflect that.
Yeah, and sometimes we do get the question, why do we have to turn in a syllabus for a course? And first off, that's what is required for every college class, and a dual credit class is a college course with college objectives and everything that goes with it. But then also, just every once in a while, I'll get an email from a student that's trying to go to a different institution after college, particularly either private colleges or out-of-state colleges, and they're trying to get some transfer credit for this, that, and the other thing for college courses. And if we don't have a syllabus on file, then usually the credit is not accepted. So we will, using our different platforms and now doingall.com, we can go in and find the old syllabi that have been submitted, and then we can get that, and that's helped many a student in the past get transfer credit. So that's part of the reason too that we want to have those on file.
That's a great point. We have that at Ivy Tech, except that since we all use the same learning management system, you can just go in and retrieve it from there. Since our dual credit faculty have much more flexibility with that, we do have a need to be able to share a syllabus. That probably happens to me a couple times a semester. Even somebody who says, I was there 8 years ago. Do you have a syllabus? I eventually will find it, so, and it's for that very reason, for transfer.
Yeah, we get every year I get amazed by how far back people have transfer credit that they're trying to utilize. So, and more power to them. I would too, in all those situations, but yeah, that's part of the reason why. I am just putting once again in the chat for anyone who joined us a little bit later. If you would fill out this Google form, we can make sure that you get credit for attending and professional growth points for your teaching license. We'll send that out in the middle of May or so when all these discipline dialogue sessions are done. So just putting that in front of everyone. One thing, Rebecca, this just popped in my mind, and so I'm not trying to pop quiz you or put you on the spot or anything like that. But for these programs and disciplines, thinking of Ivy Learn and like how a lot of times some of these courses will have a blank course in Ivy Learn if the teacher would want to utilize, but most of the time they use their own high school platform. But are there any common assessments in these courses? Because oftentimes like a common assessment, a common statewide final would be embedded into Ivy Learn. But I don't know off the top of my head if there are any that cover this.
I do not believe there are. Our common assessments are in our gateway courses that have been identified, and I don't believe that HUMA is one of those gateway classes. So at least it wasn't last year. And
yeah, I don't think it's. I should have looked into that beforehand, but it just popped in my mind. And if you don't have a common assessment, thank the good Lord that you don't, because it's just an extra hoop to jump through. Not that we can't do it, but it's always simpler just not to have these things. Okay, so with all of that being mentioned here, that's kind of our rough agenda of some talking points that we wanted to cover. But with the remaining amount of time, wanted to offer up the ability to have Q&A for the group here. If there's anything pressing on the top of your mind that you'd like to ask, we have a content expert here. Of course, you can always email your program chair, but we want to make sure that we have the dialogue part of the discipline dialogue available.
I did want to offer one more thing while you're pausing on that, and that is this is a conversation we have had with some of our dual credit teachers and even with some of our Ivy Tech instructors, and that is these humanistic and artistic ways of knowing classes provide an overview and sort of the expression side of being human. It's really not, though, a performance class. And we've had some faculty who have had assignments attached to, well, now you will perform something, whether it's to act out a part from a play or to offer some kind of vocal interpretation or musical interpretation. That's all lovely, but that's not the requirement of the class. This isn't and Bree, you said you had an acting degree. This isn't an acting class. It's just, let's examine what it means to go to the theater and what are all the parts that, build up the theater, what create that experience, and how can we look at that maybe from a critical eye so we can offer some type of a critique. So though often students are really encouraged and interested in having a bit of a performance experience, that would sit outside of the learning outcomes of these classes. We do have an acting class. It's a higher level class. I think it's HUMA 201. Since I've been in Ivy Tech, we've only been able to run it one time. And that would be the class that would house that sort of opportunity. I don't believe it sits on our dual credit crosswalk at this time, and I don't believe the class is even in the Indiana College Core, but I just kind of wanted to remind that it's not, the student does not have to be able to perform to be successful in the class. It's not even really an expectation.
And just a couple other reminders. I know I think I mentioned it before I hit the recording button. All high school students are eligible for free classes this summer with Ivy Tech, 100% free, whether it be online or face-to-face. High school students can take free courses with the college, so that applies to graduating seniors. So those who are getting ready to graduate and would be college freshmen this coming fall, they're eligible all the way to rising ninth graders. So those 5 cohorts of students are eligible for free classes, covers tuition, consumables, book fees, all of that. Everything's 100% free to students. Anything else from the group? Also, just want to thank all of our dual credit instructors for working with the college and providing dual credit to your students. There is no obligation or anything that's forcing you to be a dual credits instructor. And, all of this is usually being done out of the goodness of your heart. And there's always additional responsibilities that come with being a dual credit instructor, whether that is turning in a syllabus or doing a site visit, or, a bunch of other things like that. It all, is extra work that you're doing because you care about your students and you want to provide this opportunity to them and the college credit that goes with it. So we sincerely appreciate all of the hard work that you do. We have nearly 5,000 dual credit instructors across the state and 92,000 students this year that are high school students that are with us. So with that being said, does anyone have anything else for the good of the order before I dismiss class, so to speak? Okay, well, thank you very much. I will hit the record button here in a second, just in case there's anything that anyone does have to ask that doesn't want to be recorded. And then also these videos will probably be posted to YouTube later in the year, probably over the summer. Not sure what we're going to do with them exactly, but we're trying not to announce beforehand that they're all being recorded, so that way people actually show up to these sessions. We don't want people skipping them because they said they'll watch the recording and they never do usually. So we're trying to get as many people to attend as possible. So thanks a lot for coming, and let us know if you ever have any questions.